From recruiting and consulting firm Riderflex, I'm your host, Steve Urban, and here is your Riderflex episode of the day. On today's episode of the Riderflex podcast, we visit with co-founders Chris White and Jens Nicolaysen from Shinesty. They create and sell the world's most outrageous apparel for everyone willing to take life a little less seriously. Anyway, when my partner Scott called me, he's like, "Hey man, check out this company. Like, these guys are going to be on the podcast." I'm like, "Oh shit, this should be fun." Jens, where are you at?
This isn't my proudest moment, but I'm coming to you live from my mom's basement at the moment, actually. I don't normally spend time in my mom's basement, but we are down in my wife and I are down in Denver because we had something we had to do, and my mom was watching my kid, and we bounced back here. So my view is not quite as good. It's this rock retaining wall. Not quite the glorious vista that Chris has, but yeah.
I was halfway expecting you, Jens, to come on the show with like one of those fake giant hair things or a costume or something. I was thinking he might come on all dressed up. I didn't know for sure.
I feel like I'll probably let you down
here. It was fun doing my homework on you guys to prepare for the show. I was showing my wife, and she's like, "What the hell? What?"
What did you find?
Not just the outfits and the apparel, but the vibe and the energy and the messaging and all of that is super fun and cool, right? It's a hip, fun, kind of exciting brand is what I read. That's the feeling I got. Like, oh, not only are these the clothing and the outfits and the stuff they sell, those are cool, but also it's just cool to like follow this brand and like, oh, they have a TV show on MTV too. Wow, cool. Tell me a little bit. So let's just get into it. Were you guys friends in college? Did you meet over at CU, or how'd you guys meet?
We met after CU. Actually, we have like a friend who's a friend in common who worked with me at SendGrid, which is like a tech company that's came out of Boulder. It's IPO'd recently. But a cool success story out of Boulder. I was interning there during school, as was one of Jens's friends. So she worked with me, and she kind of put us together and introduced us actually for the first time.
We got it was kind of like a business blind date. Like she like supervised the whole thing. Like we met at Tiaco in Boulder, and we decided we didn't hate each other, and we'd start something.
The idea was not fully fleshed out, but the concept that was, hey, we spend a lot of our disposable income on going to these events, so music festivals and sporting events, and all the things that we were traveling to and going to parties with our friends. Why is there not a location or a brand that provides an easy place to find product for these social moments in life?
Okay, so you kind of had that idea. And Jens, what did you think when he starts pitching you this? You're like, what do you like?
I'm like, oh my God, we're a couple years out of college at this point, and I'm like, yeah, I completely see the need for this. Like, it's a pain in the ass to find this stuff. Still need it. You need it in college, which was, I think, where most of my mindset was at the time, and that's not really even, it's not even the biggest part of our market now. But when you get out of college, you have like so many more needs and events through the whole rest of your life. You've got tailgates and Halloweens and Christmas parties. Like after college, the partying doesn't stop. You just have less time to get ready for it. And so the premise made a lot of sense to me. As I recall, he kind of like pitched the premise, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is making sense. This makes sense. I get it. I love the idea of like, adding a relevancy to this brand. And then he's like, well, yeah, you should totally come over and see the inventory. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you get inventory?
What?
And I like go to his apartment, some number of days later, and his just entire apartment is filled with like racks of clothes that he'd been literally driving up and down the Front Range in Colorado, like buying old ski onesies and like Marlboro jackets and like cool vintage windbreakers and Christmas sweaters and things like that. Just absolutely like bleeding all the vintage stores dry.
Wow.
So
Wow. Chris
did have a very pretty clear idea of what it was.
Chris, did you already have an LLC filed? Did you have an official business, or you were just buying this shit thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do with this yet?
No, I don't think, I think when Jens and I first met, we didn't have any of that set up or figured out yet.
Not
Okay.
yet.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
it was just like I have a weird, cool affinity for this very strange things, and let's see how much I can fit before my girlfriend breaks up with me.
Were you working full time, Jens, somewhere?
Yeah, I was working full time at a company called Egg Strategy. It's basically like brand strategy and innovation consulting, and it's mostly for like very large companies like the Starbucks, Diageo, Pernod Ricards,
Okay.
Nestle's, Coca-Colas of the world, and that was really great. It teaches you how to think and be critical and make hypotheses and defend them and make recommendations, and that was really, really incredible and really formative. But I always had this like little thing in the back of my mind, which is like at the end of these like big consulting projects, you like hand a report over and you're like, well, I hope that's helpful and you guys do something with it.
Right.
And
Exactly.
you never really get to see where the rubber meets the road, or actually execute on any of it. So that was always a little bit of like a lingering want that fortunately Shinesty has helped me like kind of scratch that itch.
Did you have an entrepreneurial bug because of one of your parents was a business owner or an entrepreneur, or where'd that come from?
Yeah, that's really funny. So my dad's side of the family, like, we're basically like pioneers in Wyoming. They homesteaded and then like
Wow.
progressively bought ranches all around and more ranches all around.
Okay.
And then started a lumber yard, and this is all up in Wyoming.
Okay.
And so at least on my dad's side of the family, for sure, we've always had this kind of like entrepreneurial streak. So my dad was very entrepreneurial. He like bought and ran an oil field, and my uncle ran the ranch side of it. And so, yeah, I always had this kind of like desire to follow in those footsteps.
How about you, Chris? Where'd the entrepreneurial bug come from for you?
Yeah, so I guess it happened kind of all at once when I was 18. So had some stuff happen in my family, and basically during my freshman year, I needed to become financially independent. And so I started taking sales jobs. And so commission only sales jobs. So think Cutco, knives, think travel packages I would sell to other college kids. And then one of the things I did is I worked for a custom screen printing company, and I sold custom apparel to
That's
fraternities and sororities.
Okay, that's the beginning of the apparel tie-in right there a little bit. And were you always a crazy dresser?
Always a crazy dresser.
Okay. All right. So you go over. He's got all this stuff in his apartment. He's got his clothes, and he's talking to you about this idea. From there, talk to me about how did you guys bootstrap it? Did you just start selling a little bit online? Did you raise cash right away? How'd you get it rolling?
Yeah, the original concept was, let's take this vintage product and let's use this as kind of our minimum viable product.
Okay.
Probably was not said that eloquently. Definitely was not said that eloquently. But
MVP, what's that? MVP,
yeah,
what's that?
Yeah. Essentially, that is what we did, where we said, okay, let's take this product, we'll list it online, we'll take photographs of it, we will make it look like you can buy multiple of this vintage ski suit that we have, and we'll see how many people we can drive to actually click.
Okay. All right.
Can you guys hear me, or am I cutting?
Yeah. No, you did. Yeah, that was perfect. And did you build the website yourself in WordPress? How'd you guys put it together?
It was pretty rough. I think Chris actually designed the first one. We like split copywriting.
Yeah, it was bad.
Duties. You can go. There's a tool online. Actually, it's great. Everyone should know about Wayback Machine. If you Wayback Machine Shinesty.com, you can see the very first website. Actually, you can see
that's
the
pretty
splash
cool.
page, and then you can see once it launched.
Yeah, it was bad.
It's come a long way.
Yeah.
So then let me guess. You started getting hits, and you're like, oh shit, people are actually ordering this thing.
Well,
yeah.
It was like pretty hilarious because we, like, to start, before we even had the site, we'd put up a splash page that just kind of had like some inspiration imagery. Like, this is the type of stuff you're going to find there. This is like what we're going to do. And so we'd already like captured some emails before we actually launched the website. Okay. And I remember it was pretty hilarious because Chris and I, like, he's talking about like, we, described the images, we'd post these listings, and we had like, I want to say it was like 70 or 80 products probably, but we'd gone through the trouble of like photographing every single one, all angles, more interesting shots. We wrote one-off descriptions for them. We described their quality and the size and the brand. And we did this like 80 some odd times. And we sent our first email like, cool, you've been on the wait list. It's open. Here you go. Go at it. And like every single product sold out.
Wow.
And I was like kind of blown away because I'm like, well, that's incredible. That's a great, like, first email out of the gate. I'm glad we sold out, but also that took a really long time to launch 80 individual products.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a social media following as well? Did you have like a Facebook following, Instagram, any of that going on at that time?
Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, we did.
Piecing that together.
Yeah, we just were trying to be funny, basically, right? And which is kind of actually what the brand has really turned into. If you take a step back and think about it a little broader, we were just trying to make people laugh because we're selling ridiculous shit. And so why not sell it to them in an absolutely ridiculous way? And so we were, posting funny pictures, posting early memes, posting ridiculous jokes. And we had built up a pretty small but like hacky following at that time on Instagram.
Okay, very good. I was wondering how your social following played into everything. Okay, so now you're kind of off and running. So it was bootstrapped. You guys bootstrapped it at first, and you sold. That's how you got your initial cash, was selling that first line of product.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. All right. Very good. And have you raised cash at this point? Have you taken or you guys still own 100%, or where are you at with that?
No, we have raised capital, and we've done it actually a lot of different times, kind of as we've needed. So like in pretty small chunks, but like we've done it 5 times.
Have you?
So
okay.
It's mostly from individuals. So mostly small, kind of like angel investors, people who are writing between $25,000 and $100,000 checks. But we've raised money pretty substantially at this point total. When you roll it all together, it's about $8.5 million. And
okay. All right.
Good
job. Great job. Congratulations. It's not,
you're saying that
pretty, yeah. Let's just take a pause right there. Raising $8.5 million is not an easy thing to do.
and that was done over kind of like the last 6 years and piece by, I think probably once a year at least. And it was kind of as we needed cash really for inventory growth. And so we weren't profitable up until the last year. However, we were like close. But as you grow a retail brand, not having access to debt really kind of, we had to rely on equity financing because we had to grow that balance sheet to be able to afford inventory essentially.
Okay. So 2019, you were break even roughly somewhere in there.
In the last calendar 12. Yeah.
Okay. Congratulations. All right. Very good. And then COVID hit for 2020. You were probably thinking to yourself, 2020 is going to be your best year, or is it going to be? I don't know. Talk to me.
2020.
Yeah. We, So COVID has been really interesting. There was definitely a 2-week period where things fell off, as I'm sure every business in the entire world felt, with kind of that distinct shift in what the hell is happening right now. Right. And no one knew. And obviously not the most important thing. Your party clothes aren't the most important thing in the midst of a global pandemic. However, I will say that business has bounced back and returned to our forecasts that we set at the beginning of the year.
Great.
And I think that's a big piece of that is just e-commerce is really, doing well right now in the economy as people kind of shift those habits to online purchasing. So we've been beneficiary of that.
Are you only selling direct to consumer through your own website? Who else are you selling through? And are you looking at doing any wholesale to big box retailers? What's your plan? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, about 98% of our revenue is direct to consumer through our website.
Through your own website. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, we do have a very small amount on Amazon. We sell some masks on Amazon, and we sell a couple of SKUs of boxers on Amazon.
Okay.
But it's very, very minimal in terms of the overall business. We have considered thinking about wholesale, and we were thinking about that a little bit heavier come at the beginning of this year, but then come March, we really put that on the back burner for now as the very minimal amount of wholesale that we do have in our sports licensing category. We sell to some small independent stores.
Okay.
They had trouble paying. And so it's kind of like, I don't think that we want to go down this route with everything closed and, payment risk and bankruptcy risk from bigger retailers. So we kind of put that on the back burner for now.
Okay. All right. So the business is direct to consumer through your own website, which is great margins, by the way. You're not having to give Amazon 15% or whatever the hell they're charging these days, right? Or charging more. Yeah, probably charging more, right? Chris, are you still the lead buyer, Chris?
No, I'm not the lead buyer anymore. I've relinquished those duties.
That was probably hard for you, right? Because that was that was your favorite thing early on, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely still weigh in, and I still sit on design meetings, and I still sit in on fall line planning meetings, things like that. But I'm not making the decision. I'm not the ultimate decision maker when it comes to product anymore.
Okay, so you guys are designing at this point. At this point, you're creating stuff. You're sending your designs out. Somebody's manufacturing for you a certain amount of goods, and then you're bringing them from overseas. Or what's the model?
Okay. Yeah, we design and produce about 85% of the product that we sell on our website, and the other 15% is made up from other cool brands that we kind of curate and bring together and just sell their brands on our website.
Okay, so for the listeners, for the Riderflex podcast, so just let that sink in. Producing 85% of their own goods, which means the margins are better than buying it from somebody else, and they're selling direct to the consumer through their own website, which is the best margin you can possibly have. Your margins on your income statement probably look pretty good, I'm guessing.
Yes, we're satisfied with the margins.
See why people start direct to consumer businesses.
All right. How did you guys decide who was going to be CEO and who was going to be CMO and all these things? How were all these decisions made?
How did we decide that, Jens? I
basically remember it like this. I mean, it was your original idea, and you said, "I'm going to be the CEO, and you're going to be the CMO." And I was like, "All right."
Okay. I guess that's how. It wasn't like a big.
It wasn't a big discussion. It was like, I'm like, I don't know, that makes sense. Like he had the original vision for this, and I love marketing. I want to see where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, versus what I've been doing in consulting. So
what's the biggest disagreement? What's the biggest blow up you've had where you're like, okay, I'm mad at you today for a couple of days? What can you give me a good one? Give me something.
We disagree like every single day, probably, but I don't know. We've never really had like a blowout though.
I don't think we don't like stop talking, but we do have like disagreements where we have to argue, where we have to leave and be like, all right, I guess we just have to agree to disagree on that.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we both come from a place of like respecting the other's intelligence and intuition, and so we can argue very vehemently over business decisions, and in the end, take a second, think about it, come up with a decision, and go. I mean, it's not definitely never had like a emotional breakdown, like "fuck you, Jens." I don't know what you would do to make me say that.
To like defend our hypotheses or defend our assumptions, and that's really healthy. I think that they're not personal attacks, and we don't take these things personally. It's just like, this is what I think, this is what you think. We're both working off of imperfect information in a lot of these cases, and so
right.
It ends up being healthy discourse. We both.
I think it sets
kind of strong-willed, so sometimes it's.
Yeah, I think it sets a good example for the rest of the team too, right? That's like, no one is this Steve Jobs genius in our company, and
right.
So you should challenge if you disagree with someone's logic or you disagree with a decision, and that you might not win at the end of the day, but you should challenge that, speak up, and we can have a discussion around it. It usually results in a better outcome.
Let's chat about that team, that office environment or team environment a little bit, because when I'm watching your videos and I'm studying you, I'm thinking, holy cow! I don't know, being the HR lead, the human resource leader for that company might be a challenge based on language and activity and different things. That was my first reaction.
Yeah.
Well, this all comes down to who you bring into the business, because it is like the business wouldn't be authentic if anyone's seen the brand. Like, it is meant to be polarizing. It is in your face. It makes like not safe for work, jokes at times. It's meant to be polarizing, and you can't have that kind of brand if you don't have people who can create that brand internally. Yeah. And people who like that humor tend to like that type of brand, tend to love it. And that's why I think we have the product, market, and brand fit that we do. But it just wouldn't be possible if your internal culture was like, oh, we have to be so safe inside and then
Right.
try to create this irreverent, like boundary pushing brand outside. It wouldn't work like that. And so the people that we tend to hire and that we tend to bring into the business are people who love the outside brand and want to contribute to it from the inside.
Yeah.
And
I'm
we're
guessing. Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, we're very upfront with that during the interview process, right? So,
Yep.
asking jokes about farting during an interview process, just to make sure someone's not super uncomfortable with that, because we are going to talk about sex. There are going to be jokes about sex. We're going to talk about balls.
Yep.
We're going to make, that's the brand. And so making sure that you're comfortable with that before you join, and being very, very upfront and explicit with what it's going to be like, what it is like on the inside of Shinesty as you're going through the application process.
Can you have them sign like some sort of additional release form, like I will not get upset when there are dick jokes in the office, or some sort of form?
I do think our like employee handbook says like, hey, part of the creative process here means you're going to be exposed to things that would be like, that would not fly in most
right.
but like that's part of the process here. And you have to be like, you have to understand that this brand is different. Like the same way if you worked at a condom company, you'd probably have to be okay with like,
yep,
a way different thing than if you worked for like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Much tamer.
And there are things,
Nestle Pure Life water.
There are things that we don't talk about. So we have like a policy where we don't make jokes about race, rape, or religion.
Okay,
They're
good.
kind of the off-topic.
Those are the off
things.
one. Okay.
Politics.
So that, humor and politics, if we're going to make a joke about politics, we make it about both sides.
Gotcha. All right. So, gotcha. Okay, cool. So there are some boundaries.
Yeah.
There are ones that are obvious though.
They're obvious. Yeah.
We would hope they would be obvious. But
when I was watching the videos, I was like, man, I want to party with these guys. Like, can we do a podcast where we like have happy hour afterwards?
Once the pandemic's over.
Yes. How did the MTV thing come about? Talk to me a little bit about that. Oh, because the show is airing right now, right?
No, it aired actually in 2017.
Oh, it did. Oh, it's 3 years old. Okay, my bad. I thought that was okay. All right. So talk to me about that.
It's old. I mean, it came about in like 2015. I'm pretty sure. Like it was Christmas 2015. This like producer reaches out to us and he's like, "Just got my first package. This is incredible. Would you guys mind if I come out and like shoot what they call a sizzle reel, which is basically how they would sell it to a network."
Did you approach him? You pinged him, or how?
No. This was like, he was a customer and he like reached out to us and he's like, "This is what I do. Can I come out and shoot like the sizzle reel? I think there could be a show with you guys." And this is like the middle of our busiest season. Like fourth quarter, we sell a lot of Christmas stuff, and so we were just like, "No, absolutely not. You can't come out right now." But reach out at the beginning of next year if you do want to do something.
Okay.
And he reached out again, like clockwork, like, I don't know, January 2nd. He's like, "Hey, I'm back. Can I come out now?" And we're like, wow, okay, he must be serious about this. And so he comes out and he films this, like, essentially sizzle reel, which is like a highlight reel of like what the premise of the show would be. Okay. And like our consensus with everyone who's involved in it was like, that was terrible. That was like such an awkward situation. So not like us. And it just felt
never been
start. Yeah,
if you've never been interviewed for reality television, the first time you do it, it is quite awkward looking at a huge screen of yourself staring into a massive camera lens. Very awkward if you're not an actor.
You're right.
And but they sent the thing back to us at the end, and we're like, "Whoa, this thing actually looks pretty damn good." Like, I can't believe they pieced this together. They used a lot of like our footage and our like kind of more natural stuff as well. And we're like, wow, actually, like I could see the vision now. This doesn't look as cringeworthy and terrible as I thought based on like when they left after shooting it.
Was it one season?
One season. Yeah, it was kind of hilarious because between it got greenlit really quickly. Like they didn't do a pilot. They went straight to series.
Okay.
MTV, the like major network, bought it. But between the show being like greenlit and actually airing, every single person basically that touched the project left or was fired from MTV or Viacom.
Bummer.
It was legitimately up to like the chief creative officer of Viacom, who was like, it was his child. It was like his baby within like Viacom.
I see.
It was pretty hilarious. Chris like basically pestered them every single week for like 6 months. Like, when's it airing? When's it going to air? When's it going to air? When's it going to air? Until they like finally, because we thought it was just getting shelved, basically. Chris was pestering them, and then I'll let you pick it up from here, Chris.
Yeah, Chris, your early days as a commissioned salesperson to take care of yourself, those have all paid off for you, not only in that respect, but probably with the raising the cash and everything else. Like, you don't strike me as a guy that takes one no and then stops.
No, I've heard a lot of no's for sure. When you're doing something kind of weird like we're doing, it doesn't make sense to a lot of people, so you get a lot of no's.
Right.
But
right.
Yeah, the show basically ended up airing on MTV2 without a lot of fanfare, just kind of them putting it out there. And so it was kind of disappointing for us, because when we originally signed up to do the show, it was supposed to be a primetime MTV show that they were going to put a lot of marketing resources behind. And then, yeah, like Jen's mentioned, everyone the executive team got shifted out there at Viacom. And I guess the way it works is no one wants to inherit another person's projects. And so they want to have kind of their own creative impact.
Because if it succeeds, it wasn't theirs. And if it doesn't succeed, then they're responsible for it. It's like a lose-lose situation for them. So
it's kind of a bummer, because we did spend a ton of time filming that.
Did you make any money on it? No.
Very little. I mean, they paid us a little bit per episode, but really the value was in the marketing.
There's no way that like the like small paltry amount that we made off it offset the like distraction.
But I do think, I mean, the idea of a reality show though for your brand behind the scenes, I agree with it. I want to know. I look at your brand online. I'm like, I want to know what's going on back there. What's going on behind the curtain? I want to. Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Somebody else should probably do a show for you. Have you talked to anybody else?
That's a good. I've like thought about it a little bit, but at this point, we definitely wouldn't do another show for MTV. Maybe for like YouTube or something that was a little shorter form.
Okay.
But MTV is just the way that it was done. It wouldn't work for us anymore.
Understood. And like Jen's, like you were saying, I mean, running a business as co-founders is hard by itself, and then trying to find the time to do like a reality show. Yeah, that would be tough. I mean, it's the same for me at Riderflex, right? I have to be very careful not to let our podcast take me away from what actually pays the bills.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and for reference, they had like 35 crew who lived in Boulder for 6 weeks. We worked on the show 4 days a week filming, and then another day, kind of me and Jen did, at least working with the producers to kind of help concept the episodes. And we had to do our normal work.
Woo.
So
yeah.
It was like legitimately 6 weeks, 7 days a week. And like you're working, and then you're like tired from working, and then you got to like perform. Like you literally have to go and like be hyper you on TV, and you're like, wow, this is hard.
I think actually our best idea, our best idea, Steve, was actually to hire, if we did it again, to hire actors to play us.
Oh, okay. And, there you go.
Yeah. So we could actually do our work.
Yes.
So the business now, I know you don't want to get into a lot of numbers, but how about number of employees? Can you share that? Like how big is the company? Is that?
Yeah, totally. I think we have 30 or so kind of office employees, and then we run our own fulfillment center and distribution center. So we have 20 employees there, roughly.
You know, you guys not only had to do a startup, which is super hard to get it going, then you had to learn how to raise cash, which you had no experience doing. And then you had to learn how to be CEOs and CMOs and manage people and large teams all at the same time. That's not an easy thing to do. What's been the hardest? What is it? Was the, production, sourcing for clothes, personnel, raising cash? What's been the toughest for you guys?
That's a great question. I feel like it changes every year. And so there's a different massive challenge you have to deal with each year. Maybe the first year it was, okay, how do we have enough cash to finance our inventory? And then as we grew the team, you have personnel issues. And then as you grow production past your initial supply, you have production issues. And so I think it changes every year. I feel a lot better about the business now as we kind of reached a point of profitability and being able to stand on our own two legs. That makes things a lot less stressful.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, once you can actually pay yourself, and you're probably paying yourselves a decent salary now, finally, probably, I'm guessing, something livable.
Livable, better than we did at the beginning. At least.
We've come a long way from where we started, and
it
I
really
think we
is.
paid ourselves.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think we paid ourselves nothing for the first year and a half, and then we took like $40,000 salaries, and then 50,000. So we can pay ourselves more than that now, but like for the first 3-4 years, we were being pretty.
I've lived it. I've lived it, bro. I've lived it. When
Yeah.
my first,
you got to make sacrifices. And that was like a big one, and you hope that it pays off at some point.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, the first year Scott and I started Riderflex together, we paid ourselves nothing, and coincidentally, our second year we paid ourselves about $40,000.
Yeah.
I remember my wife saying, "Hey, I know you're having fun with this and all, but are we ever going to make is it ever going to be normal again?" But if you sacrifice enough, though, eventually, hey, that's a major accomplishment, by the way, to get to where now you are profitable, so you're not burning cash. You still probably want to raise some for future scaling up the business, but at least you're not burning cash, and you're paying yourselves a decent salary. I mean, just to get to that point is such a relief after starting something from scratch. So I've lived it. So I know what you've been through to get it to that point. So congratulations on getting it there.
Yeah, thank you. It definitely lifts a weight off of stress off of everyone's shoulders. So.
What was the scariest moment? Do you have anything specifically you want to share on, you woke up in the middle of the night, you're sweating, you're walking around in your living room at 3 a.m., scared as shit. Like anything specific you want to share?
We've had moments for sure. I mean, where we've been like, how much money do we have in the bank again? Can we afford to hit payroll?
We've always had this like challenge where like, especially when we were more like exclusively holiday and event based, where like Christmas was and the fourth quarter was like, we were doing like what, Chris, probably 65 to 70% of our business in like a 6 to 8 week window. 6 weeks, really. Yeah. 6 weeks. And so you have to build up this insane like inventory store before that. And so like our, kind of mid to late third quarter time is like, you're so low. And then like your bank account is so low. It's absolutely drained because you paid out everything for your inventory. And then you're like, well, I hope the holiday season pays off because like everything is riding on 6 weeks. Like we wait all year. We wait, 40 something weeks for these 6 weeks. So was
that cash that did you save it up, or did you have a line of credit for production at the bank? How'd you do that?
And it's a combination. We've like begged, borrowed, and stealed every, dollar of debt we can sometimes get to fund inventory. And luckily that's not the case anymore as we've expanded. The business is way more stable through the rest of the year. And, we're profitable every month, not just on the rolling year basis. So we don't have to wait for Christmas only. But at the time in 2015 and 2016, even in 2017, if that Christmas nut didn't come, we were fucked. Like we would have been out of business for sure.
You can imagine not a lot of bankers were like jumping in at the opportunity. They're like, oh, cool. I know how to get rid of 50,000 polyester Christmas suits. Like,
right.
No, I remember like talking to this one banker and he's like, yeah, I mean, usually like if it's like a brewery, it's like bulk honey and we know how to get rid of bulk honey, but like tons of literal tons of manufactured polyester. Like, I don't know what to do with that. Like,
that's right.
We can't give you debt.
That's right. All they care about is when they look at your inventory and they go, okay, if these guys don't make it and I have to liquidate their ass tomorrow, how much can I get back?
Yep.
I lived that for sure. So let me ask you this. What would you say to the aspiring entrepreneur that's listening? Him and his buddy are listening to this episode. They're having beers at Buffalo Wild Wings because they have an idea and they want to start a business. What 2 or 3 things would you share, Chris? Let's start with you, and then we'll hit Jen's with the same question.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say first off, it's exceedingly difficult, but also exceedingly rewarding and fun. So make sure that you pick a product or a industry or a brand, whatever it is that you're building, that you are fascinated by, that you love, that you're interested in. Because if you don't, you're not going to make it through. It's a grind, and it doesn't happen overnight. Although you sometimes read a Forbes article about a big business, $100 million business, and you think, oh, these guys just cruise to it. I think one of my favorite podcasts actually is How I Built This. And I really like the stories that are not the easy ones,
right?
Which is basically all of them except for Chipotle, it sounds like. I love hearing about just like the absolute grind. We're almost out of business, because every person who's started a company that's reached scale has gone through those moments. So basically, going back to that, make sure you are doing something you authentically love, because if you don't, you're not going to make it through.
Chris, I meant to ask you that year how did you survive that first 2 years? Did you have some money saved up? Did you call mom and dad, let me borrow some cash? What'd you do?
I had a roommate. So when I first moved to Boulder, I had bought like a apartment. So I had a roommate who basically covered, my mortgage.
Okay.
And then I had a girlfriend who was a nurse, so she bought my food, and I just kind of subsided on nothing, I guess. I don't really remember. No, I definitely didn't call my parents, because they wouldn't have been able to help me. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I just kind of beg, borrowed, and steal until fake it till you make it.
Jens, I can almost see the look on your face. Chris is pitching you this business idea, and he's telling you hey man, I'm not, this doesn't make any money, and I'm not sure when we can ever pay ourselves, but this is going to be a lot of fun. Come help me.
I similarly, it's funny you asked that question, because I was like, how the hell did we do that? And I was like, oh shit. I literally started doing consulting, independent consulting, basically what I was doing, but just working for myself while we were starting Shinesty. And I was like, I guess I was just working 2 jobs. That's how we did it.
Yeah. And technically, I guess actually this is an interesting hack. I was still in school. And so I did have loans that I think I got $9,000 a semester as living expenses, or $8,000 a semester as living expenses. And so I could use those loans to finance my life while I was in business and law school, technically.
Gotcha.
And live off of that.
Were you going to be a lawyer? Was that the plan?
No.
No.
I don't know why I went to, honestly, I've always liked school. I like learning. And so when I graduated from undergrad, I just went straight into the JD MBA program at CU.
Okay.
Not really knowing, not having a grand plan.
Gotcha. Jen's 2 or 3 pieces of advice here for the aspiring entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think at least 2 come to mind here. The first is, especially for very, very, very early on, and this is only something I've kind of really recently reflected on, is really scrutinizing your first employees. And I say that because I think we got incredibly lucky. I mean, you should always be really diligent with hiring, because it's a lot of time and effort. And if it doesn't work out, starting the process over, you've lost out a lot, and it's time consuming. But those first employees are, when I think about most of our first employees, because a lot of them are still with the company, and they have risen from being the labor that, we could afford at the time, which meant that they were willing to take really low salaries and work way harder for a chunk of the business. I mean, they have almost every single one of those persons is in a manager or director seat at this point, running a large team.
Very cool.
And they were mostly people who did not have that experience coming into it. They were just willing to get these really big shoes and try to fill them. And without, there are a handful of these guys specifically that I'm thinking of, we wouldn't be where we were without them. And they were early on, they had the gumption to go out and do what we wanted. They were willing to work hard for less, and they believed in the vision of the company.
They believed it. Yep. They believed in the vision and wanted to help you build a brand, which is a special thing to do. Okay.
I think with a couple exceptions where you really need deep expertise, I think you'd be surprised with what you can get when you get the right people who are excited about your vision and your business. You don't always have to hire deep expensive experience, unless maybe there's like, you got legal things you have to somehow work through, or it's like deeply technical, deeply scientific, something like that. But
When I'm trying to pitch a candidate to a client, I want you to come with me next time and have that conversation with the client when I'm trying to tell them, you need to hire Johnny. I don't give a shit if he's missing 2 or 3 things from the resume. But stop thinking that way.
You can make up a lot. I mean, and like most of the people who are doing like highly specialized things for us now, like they came in without that exact experience. They were just willing to work harder and learn more than most people.
That really matters. Yep.
And I think the other piece of advice, the second one that I would give, is really learning how to focus. It's a lot harder to say no to something than it is to say yes. And there's a really delicate balance too. Like if you do too little, you might undercut your growth potential. But if you do too much, I think that's where the bigger risk comes, because then you just risk doing everything shittily.
Yep.
And it's a fine line, but you got to figure out, hey, what is the like number of things that we can do and do really, really, really well, so that we don't dilute and water ourselves down. And it's just really easy, especially when you're starting a business, if you're like entrepreneurial and you're excited to take on more than you can reasonably do well, whether that's product lines or channel tests or whatever the hell it is.
And every investor and advisory board member you add to the group, they want to throw you little things like, hey, you should try this, you should do this.
It's like, yeah, I mean, you go to a conference or you get an investor and it can be like drinking from the fire hose, and you got to kind of like set a vision and like say, cool, if and when we like get to here, then we'll take the next thing on, we'll invest in this one in a way that's good for ongoing, so we can move on to the next thing and the next thing. But
what's the plan? Are you guys building a lifestyle business that you can just, you continue growing it and having fun, and you make a good salary, and you come in 3 days a week while a couple of other GMs run the place? Or are you trying to get to a certain place and sell it? Have you decided? And you don't necessarily have to have an answer. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're having a lot of fun right now building a brand, and our goal is always to build a brand that forces the world to take itself less seriously, more important now than ever. And so we're having a lot of fun. We're not going to focus on, what is the specific outcome. I think if you build a really good business, you'll have opportunities, whether that's to sell the business or to make it cash flowing and taking money out of it, or to sell to another brand, or to scale up, or to join other brands. Whatever those opportunities are, they'll come if you build a strong business, a strong brand, a strong customer base, strong foundation. So we don't think about it. We try not to think about it on the day-to-day, and really focus on executing our 1-year plan and our 3-year kind of vision, which is, what we're working towards financially and as a brand. But, I think we're open to all of the things that you listed as outcomes. We don't know what that's going to be yet.
Anything you want to add to that, gents?
We're definitely not working 3 days a week and have GMs that do all of it.
I guess you're right. That's definitely an outcome we are not working towards. We enjoy the grind and the work.
Gotcha.
So,
Chris, our answer is very, very similar at Riderflex. People always, every time somebody meets with me and Scott, they try to corner us. And like, okay, well, at what point are you going to sell? Like, show me your 5-year financial model and when you're going to I'm like, listen, bro, I did 10 interviews today. I did 10 interviews today. We made 5 more placements. I checked the bank account. We have money there, and sales are up, and I'm tired and I'm having a drink now. So don't bother me with the rest of that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Last question. I know we're almost out of time. Last question for each of you. Jens, let's start with you. If you had to put your core purpose in life right now, not to get too deep because you guys are a fun brand, so I don't want to get too serious, but if you had to put your core purpose into a sentence or two, what would that sound like?
Well, I think it comes down right now for me to building a sustainable brand, and a brand and business that can last. Because what I don't want is for Shinesty and for our, ball hammock product lines and all these things that we're creating to just be flashes in the pan. there are tons of families, there are tons of investors, there are tons of employees that are all riding on this being a great long-term company. And I also think we've just worked way too hard for this to be a flash in the pan.
Mm-hmm.
So everything I'm doing is figuring out how we, at least with an emphasis on the marketing side, how we operate this in a smart, sustainable way so that we can become a household name, and so that this is a brand that has real sticking power and staying power that can provide for my family, for Chris's family, for all of our employees and all of our shareholders' families for a very, very, very long time.
I love that answer, Jens. And I'll just share with you, a very dear friend of mine was the founder and owner of Fresh Produce Sportswear in Boulder. It was an apparel company for 30 plus years in Boulder. Tom and Mary Ellen Vernon. I'm not sure if you know them.
I know Fresh Produce. I didn't do that.
Yeah, I worked for them. So I was a COO there and an interim CEO, and I know the family well and know the business. But my point is they recently decided to, after 30 plus years, to fold up the business, and they're going to retire. And I was talking to Mary Ellen, and she was feeling bad. She had this, we didn't. It's not going to make it past this, and it's not going to go any further. And I said, Mary Ellen, I said, you spent 30 years affecting lives and families and people paying off their homes, people putting their kids through school. Like, you affected lives, and that means probably more than the actual brand name that you built. So the fact that you touched on that right there, the fact that you know already that it means a lot to the family, and you're feeding these people. You're creating payroll that's building lives and families. And that, I'm telling you right now, at the end of the day, when you guys get to be 60 years old, that's going to mean more to you than anything else. Guarantee it. It's a big deal. Chris, how about you, my friend? If you had to put your core purpose into a sentence or two, what would that sound like?
Yeah, Jen stole a lot of my thunder there. That was a really, really good answer. I think for me, it's to add on to that would be, again, the world's a serious place right now, a lot of serious problems. And I think bringing some levity to that, whether it's just in a simple ad that you see or an email that you get, even just for 5 seconds, that makes you shake your head, laugh, and be like, the people who run this brand are fucking ridiculous. If it just makes you giggle a little bit, I think we've done good, right? We've done good for the world. And so that's our brand mission, is to force the world to take itself less seriously. And so I think being able to make more people smile or laugh is where my head is at. And it's especially important right now.
It really is, bro. I couldn't agree more. By the way, the ball hammock thing, did you guys come up with that name, or did you create that?
We did create that. We own the trademark for ball hammock.
Are you serious? Are you being serious right now?
I'm dead serious.
That is fucking
registered.
Great. I love that.
USPTO. We get the
that
R.
Is so good. You're right, Chris. It's such a negative, mean world right now. It feels like it in so many ways, in so many things. And you're right. It was so refreshing preparing for this interview and studying your brand. I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is fun. And you're right. We're only on this planet for a very short time, really. And so it is good to crack open a beer and laugh and, order some ball hammocks and all the rest of it. This is a good thing to do. You're absolutely right. I enjoyed preparing for it, and it caused me to relax and smile several times when I was studying. So if your goal is to make people smile and not take it so seriously, you're doing all the right things. For the listeners, by the way, it's shinesty.com, shinesty.com. You can go there, check out great website, some cool videos. I mean, how did you get these guys? Are these employees? These aren't employees in some of these shots, are they?
They are not employees. They're also, in many cases, not necessarily models. They are friends of the brand. Friends of the brand.
Okay, love it. Did you purposely? I can almost see you, Chris, or Jens, or both of you. Some guy walks in with he's got cut abs, and he's like the super good looking guy, and you're like, no, you're not going to work. You're too pretty. Get out. I need somebody more regular.
We need the man's man.
That's got to be. I'm serious. I shit you not. One of my favorite parts about the brand image is that you that you can tell that you are careful not to put absolutely beautiful, like fake people on the planet. Like this is just a regular guy. I love that about that. That's such a good move.
For normal people by normal people. Yeah.
Is that your mission? I love it. Okay. Well, if you ever need if you ever need a 53-year-old with a little pot belly on him, that's bald, and you need me to,
That's great timing. We're shooting our Christmas catalog right now. I'll tell them you've got all the time in the world.
I'm sure my wife would love that. Chris, Jens, thank you so much for being on the Riderflex podcast. I could talk to you for several more hours. And by the way, if we ever do a part 2, let's do it where we're having drinks and kind of like, towards the end of the day, and just get a little more loose even than we did this time. The Riderflex podcast features entrepreneurs, business executives, and the stories behind how they got there, as well as daily tips on career advice and job interviews. Our show can be heard just about anywhere these days, but you can visit riderflex.com and click on the podcast page to hear all the previous episodes and learn more about the recruiting and consulting services we provide. Contact us at the email address info@riderflex.com or 888-964-5876. Thanks so much for listening, and if you enjoy our show, please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like the episodes.